All right. Well, before anything else, I would like to thank Park Street and Arthur Shapiro for inviting me to be a part of this panel on the current and future state of the direct consumer channel within our industry. I think that we would all agree that the last 6 months, as Liz was saying, have been incredibly disruptive in everyone's life. COVID has profoundly changed the way in which we operate, both at a personal and professional level. And in this presentation, I would like to focus in which ways our industry has been affected, but most importantly, in the way that it has changed it for good. At Passion Spirits, we've been engaged in the direct-to-consumer space for over 6 years now. And since day one, we have been calling it a new distribution channel. We have seen the transformation from different players in the industry, from distributors to consumers, on their approach to online sales. I think that at the beginning, the major obstacle was convincing people that this was a real possibility within our industry. The three-tier system is so ingrained in the way that we do business in the United States that people would automatically disregard the notion of direct to consumer, assuming that it simply could not be done. If you would like to sell your product in the United States, then you have to go through importers, distributors, and retailers in order to reach the consumer. The interesting part of this is that such view is totally accurate. Direct to consumer is not a reality. What we have is the perception of direct to consumer. Because at the end of the day, products still have to go through the three tiers as they make their way into the final consumer. But in this case, perception is really everything. You only need the consumer to understand that he can use his phone or computer for purchasing a bottle of his favorite wine or spirit in order for him to have this perception that direct to consumer is real. And in today's in today's world, that is simply inevitable. Younger generation, starting with the millennials, which is mostly the group that we need to be looking at as they are today between 22 and 37 years old, they grew up with technology. For them, everything is acquirable through their mobile device. And the younger you go within that bracket of consumers, the more real that becomes. A 25-year-old would find it ridiculous even to have the discussion if the direct-to-consumer channel will become a thing in the following years. He would probably argue that it will become the main thing in the following years. If COVID has given us anything, it's a glimpse into a world in which online sales are the most important channel for a product. During the last 6 months, brands have had to rethink their whole strategies in order to survive. With bars and restaurants closed and people in lockdown, direct to consumer becomes a lifeline. And as things go back to normal, what has changed is that the consumer now understands that you can now get your drinks delivered just like you get anything else. So you as an industry player, whether you are a brand owner, a distributor, or retailer, you have an option. Will you take seriously what the younger consumer expects from us? Or will you dismiss it by saying that this is not the way in which things are done in our industry? As we get older, it is harder to change our ways of looking at things. Change becomes more difficult, and as a consequence, we lack an understanding of the worldview of younger people. But that doesn't change the fact that the new is the force that triggers the change. And that's why change is simply inevitable. Just like any other distribution channel, direct to consumer has to be seen through its own lens. And by that, I mean that the way to approach it has to be different. The off-premise, for instance, relies on the face-to-face interaction for completing a sale. That's why the prevailing strategy for a brand in that channel is to do tasting, tasting, tasting. In the off-premise, on the other hand, it's all about placement, recruiting, and repetition. So what is it in the direct-to-consumer channel that motivates consumers to purchase? What makes the consumer purchase a new product if he has not tried it before? On that point in particular, we sometimes find it to be very difficult for some people to understand why would a consumer purchase a new product without having had the opportunity to try it yet. Up until now, most people would probably taste a wine, a spirit, or a beer before actually going to the store to purchase. In fact, a prevailing school of thought on how to build a brand is this. You build the brand in the on-premise to eventually drive customers to the off-premise, right? So many people would understandably say that there is no way potential consumers are going to buy a product that they've never had before. But I would tell you this, don't take my word for it. Take our experience for it. Most people that purchase the product that we sell are first-time buyers. So what becomes absolutely important is to understand the psyche of this consumer. And by understanding him, and in which ways he is already interacting with other products and companies through his mobile device, is that we find the avenues and the tools needed to present your message in a relevant way to the potential customer. On this regard, I would like to share with you what we have seen to be some of the most effective strategies when engaging customers with technology. Just like in the physical world, in the digital plane, you have some of the same tools to get your message across. While you would purchase advertising in a magazine or TV ad or radio spot, you can buy similar advertising space within the pages that your target consumers are visiting. But this is when it gets interesting because unlike placing an ad in a magazine based on a target audience that the magazine has, today you can target your customers regardless of the media outlet. The difference being that you are now not advertising in media outlets as a vehicle to find your consumer, but advertising directly to your target audience regardless of the media outlet. So your message follows the customer in his navigation experience through the web, capturing his behavior in an ever more sophisticated and predictive model on what the customer might react to. This trend, championed obviously by companies like Facebook and Google, is built under the umbrella of personalization. More than anything else, I believe that this is the phenomenon that defines our generation. The information that we willingly give to these companies through our social media feed, our online searches, our likes, dislikes, comments, etc., gives these companies the opportunity to target their customers like never before. But just as important and as reaching your target consumer is, it is equally, if not more important, to engage with these customers with messages that are relevant to them. What any product needs to keep in mind is that it is not about the product itself. It is about their customers and what they want. You can have the greatest rum liquid in the planet, for instance, and you can be out and about sharing your message with the world that your rum is second to none and that you have earned all these medals and that your production method is unique and that the ingredients used in crafting the product were of the highest quality, etc. But if your target rum consumer is looking for brands that stand for a cause, relevant to the worldview that they live in, and you have nothing to say on that regard, then it really doesn't matter that you have the greatest liquid. And you actually run the risk of being seen as out of touch. Going back to the millennial generation, this is a group used to being presented products in the most personalized way. Companies today spend much of their efforts to understand what triggers them at an individual level. In return, this contributes to the expectation on the consumer side that companies should be creating products that fulfill the need that they have personally as customers. The more you understand me, the better your chances to sell your products to me, right? So most likely the reason why I personally have these views on change within our industry is because as a company, we at Passion Spirits have gone through these changes ourselves. I've been in the wine and spirits industry for over 20 years, mostly involved in sales and marketing and operating same as everybody else by dealing with importers, distributors, and retailers on a daily basis. It is only in recent years that we morphed into a technology company, and that's something I think that it's important when operating within the direct consumer space. We should not only be offering a service, but understanding how our partners in the fulfillment process view this service and how we create a model that benefits everyone. At a structural level, our industry has had little to no change for decades. And as a result of that, companies become very rigid in the way they do things. Even when presented with evidence on how technology would increase their sales and overall revenue, many players in our industry are uncomfortable to give it a try. So this is why it's so important to understand the intricacies of our industry. This is why it's so important to understand how the various players operate and what they expect from a partner. What we present, so we present the technology while factoring in their expectations into that flow. Next, I would like to discuss our experience relating to our proprietary approach in white labeling online stores for emerging brands in particular. We have built a business designed on helping new, unknown brands find a route to market through a direct-to-consumer channel. And this has provided these small players the long-awaited David strategy to level the playing field with the Goliaths of our industry. The small producer, the unknown brand, now has a real shot in getting customers to prefer their products over the known and established brands. By creating unique, custom-made online platforms for each one of our clients, we take a step forward in the personalization approach to offer the customer what he is looking for, without clutter, without distractions, just what the customer is looking for. And by doing this, we have found an appreciation of customers that know what they want. And they want it now, and they expect for you to facilitate it to them. Finally, I would like to end this presentation by saying that we're living through groundbreaking, disruptive times within our industry. This will be seen as the times in which the direct-to-consumer distribution channel arrived and became part of every company's strategy moving forward, as it should be. Thank you.